everybody. Welcome to our 4th Facebook Live Cooking with Beth. I'm obviously Beth, and we have Corey behind the camera doing our awesome filmography. He doesn't have to move very much today, so he's pretty excited about that. We're going to get started in just a minute. I want to make sure that everyone has seen the recipe, which I have linked to a couple of times. If you look at the announcements in Beth's boldest, it should be right up there, maybe the second or third one back. It's a link to my website, and there is a link to the PDF of the recipe from there. So one thing I do want to do is give a shout out to the cookbook that this is from. Now this is funny because I got this cookbook from my grandfather's ex-wife, who he's not married to anymore, obviously, ex-wife. She made these lemon bars and she gave me this cookbook, and I have to tell you that this is the greatest recipe, and yet I have still not made anything out of this cookbook besides the lemon bars. So eventually I'm going to need to branch out, but it is a cookbook compilation that benefits Mothers Against Drunk Driving. So if you feel like making a donation today to Mothers Against Drunk Driving in honor of our Facebook Live, that would be great. So let's get started. Let me see if my butter's melted. So this is a really cool recipe in that it's basically, we'll say it's a 2-pan dessert. You're going to make your crust. Oh, it's perfect. You're going to make your crust in the pan that it's going to bake in. So it's basically a 2-part dessert. Crust, and then there's a lemon bar filling. And like I said, the best part about this is that you're literally going to mix the crust in this pan. Now, to keep in line with really decadent desserts, this one also starts with 2 sticks of butter that we've melted. I didn't realize that until I thought about it today, that this is like a common thing now. So yeah, 2 sticks, which is a total of a ½ cup of butter. And you can just go ahead and set your oven to 350, and I just stuck it in there for 10 minutes or so. But just keep an eye on it, because you, like we established in the brown butter cookie recipe, you do not want it to get, well, you don't want it to get brown here, and you definitely don't want to burn it. So just keep an eye on it. We just wanted to get it totally melted. So we're going to mix our crust. Before we do that, I just want to say, if you've noticed, I'm wearing a fabulous new apron today. Thank you, Zoli from the Snarkery, who made this and sent this to me to wear on Facebook Live, and that's so neat, so thank you. And make sure to check out some of her other stuff, because she makes these incredible, all kinds of cool stuff, like shadow boxes and these really cool mandala clocks and stuff, and I'm pretty much dying to get one of those for my office, so maybe I'll do that next. In any case, crust time. So we are going to put 2 cups of flour and a ½ cup of confectioner's or powdered sugar in. So, oh, one other thing. I'm making this in a glass pan. It's a 13 by 9 pan. You want it to have, I wouldn't say high sides, but you want it to have a side. Don't make it in like a cookie sheet or something. I don't worry too much about it sticking. Probably because it has 2 sticks of butter in the crust, it's pretty much going to lift out really easily. But because of the way we're mixing it in the pan, you can't really like line it with anything. So I just kind of an FYI. I have also made it in one of these standard 13 by 9 cake pans with the non-stick. Works great in this too. So I'm using the glass one so you can kind of see a little bit better, but this is totally fine. And these are like super cheap. You can get one of these for like $7 at your grocery store. So, 2 cups of flour and a ½ cup of confectioner sugar. So we're going to do the flour first. Yes, I know this is in the way. This is really hot too. Be careful, because if you've melted the butter in the pan, it's going to be hot. So don't burn yourself like I'm probably going to do. For some reason I thought this wasn't flour for a second. It's been one of those weeks. I hope everyone else is doing well. Keeping safe, keeping and staying inside. So like I said, we're just gonna mix this in the pan. So I just like to kind of sprinkle it over the top. Make sure you don't do it from too great of a distance, because then your hot butter is gonna like splatter all over you and burn you. There's a lot of opportunities for burning here, so that's why I said that I'd probably burn myself, because it's inevitable. 2 cups of flour. Now, one of the reasons why we're using powdered sugar, now I can't say this for sure because I didn't write this recipe, but I'm guessing our producer is lecturing me about making sure those aren't in the way, and I already broke down. I'm trying, I'm really trying. So anyway, back to the powdered sugar. So because we're not actually creaming the sugar with the butter the way we would in like a cookie, it's not going to dissolve as well in the oven. So that's why we are using powdered sugar, because it is already mostly dissolved. I actually have a couple of funny stories about this recipe, but let's get this mixed and then I'll tell you the first one. Reminder, it's hot, be careful. I'm using like a, I guess this is like a heat-proof kind of silicone, what would you call this, spatula. If you only put your pan in for a little bit of time, it's probably not going to be that hot, so you don't have to worry about any utensils melting. The one thing I would suggest is, because you basically just sprinkled your flour and your powdered sugar over the top of the butter, make sure it's well mixed, because you don't want to have like a bunch of flour and then like a whole pocket of powdered sugar. Like, this is going to be our crust for the lemon bars, so we want to make sure that when we've mixed in all the flour and the powdered sugar, and that it's well mixed. So, okay. See, look, there was a little pocket of flour right there. Okay. So, the next thing is we're going to basically press it into the bottom of the pan. Now, if Corey was doing this, you would never be able to get it out, because when you tell him to press something in there, he makes sure that it's pressed. That's why you have to be very specific. Right, honey? He just nodded. Do we have any questions so far? No? Okay. Are there actually people watching? He just nods. Okay. So it doesn't have to be perfect. The good news is no one's ever going to see this except you. The one thing I will say is you want to make sure that it's even, because you don't want some parts of it to get completely cooked and then other parts to not be cooked enough. So that looks pretty good. I'm going to lift it up so you can see it, but I'm going to try not to burn myself. So it's like kind of like a shortbread crust. Very straightforward. Also, I use salted butter. I prefer salted butter in baking. You can use whatever you like. I'm not going to come hunt you down and say, you didn't use salted butter. Actually, the recipe doesn't specify, so. Okay, let's put this back in. This goes back into a 350-degree oven for 20 minutes. And while this bakes, we are going to make the filling. Okay. So first funny story. So I've been making these for a really long time. Let's see here. What year did my grandfather and grandmother get divorced? I don't remember. I was like 11 or 12. So I've been making them for a long time. And I've had other lemon bars, but these are by far and away the best. If you ever have to take like a dessert to like a potluck, these are 100% winners. It never fails to get completely eaten, which is kind of a good and bad thing. But I will say that I have seen a lot of recipes for lemon bars. Now, there was one year, it was right before we moved to North Carolina. It was like the summer, like maybe September. Our good friends Jason and Maria were having this housewarming because they just moved into a new house. And they want, one of the options was to bring a dessert. I thought, oh, I'll bring lemon bars. That's like my signature potluck dessert. Well, I realized that I had already packed all my cookbooks, because we started packing like ages before we actually moved. And I didn't have the recipe written down anywhere else. And so I like went online. I'm like, oh, I bet you, like, I know it pretty well. It's a really simple recipe, as you can see. I'm sure I can figure out how to do it just from like seeing other people's recipes. Yeah, no. They're all like slightly different, and I made 2 terrible batches, or batches that weren't as good, before I finally gave in and unpacked the box and found the recipe. So when I say this is the best recipe, I'm not lying. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to not do that. We are going to use our lemon juice. Now, it is perfectly fine to use this. I have used this for this recipe like 100 times, and for the record, this is bottled lemon juice, okay? I do happen to have some fresh lemons, but if I didn't have any, I would have no compunction about using this. Or if you have some fresh lemons and don't have enough juice, this only requires 4 tablespoons, and you think, oh, that's not very much, they won't be very lemony, but they're really lemony. And on top of that, normally I would like start fussing with a recipe and I'd be like, oh, we should add the zest because that makes it more lemony. You do not need to do any of that. Keep it exactly as it is. It's perfect how it is. Don't change it. So I got this super nifty thing at the Pioneer Woman in Oklahoma when we moved. This is like all about us moving, apparently, this episode. You can basically juice your lemon, and then there's little holes, so it takes out your seeds when you get the juice. We only need 4 tablespoons. I couldn't remember if it was tablespoons or teaspoons at that moment.
That's my problem.
Is that your problem? When was that a problem?
Always.
Apparently, this is why Corey doesn't bake, for various other reasons. Another trick, if you're having trouble getting a lot of juice out of your lemons, I always recommend, I did this before we started, but rolling them with like a kind of a force on the counter. It kind of loosens them up and gets them all like, you know, ready to go. You can also, if they're being particularly difficult, and you can do this with limes too, you can stick them in the microwave for 5 seconds. I would not do it for any longer than that. And that kind of gets the juices flowing a little bit. So, these are pretty good, and we only need 4 tablespoons, so I'm not too worried. Did you know that you are supposed to keep your citrus in the, oh my God, what's that word? In the fridge. We should be keeping track of all the words that I can't remember. I told you, it's been a week. But very exciting. I sent hazardous things off to the beta readers today, and hopefully they enjoyed it as much as I loved writing it because it was super fun. So, okay, let's see if I think we have 4 tablespoons. So, got our tablespoon, not teaspoon. Let's see if I can do this without screwing up. So 4. 1, 2, 3. Oh, look at that. That was almost perfect. Oh, look, a little bit more went in. Remember when I said don't fuss with the recipe? Don't listen to me. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to put in the eggs, which are right here. Now, I know this recipe is kind of difficult for some people because God knows you can't manage to find
Ramekin?
Ramekin? Why would I use a ramekin? Oh, you're right. I should use a ramekin. We're going to use a ramekin to make Corey feel better. You should never directly put your eggs into the container of your stuff. Because what if you've got a bad egg? I've never had a bad egg, so I don't know. For me, it's more about like, let's make sure the shell doesn't get in there. So we have 4 eggs. I know this is kind of hard right now for people because eggs are kind of hard to find, though I have had no trouble finding eggs. I actually found bread flour the other day, which was really exciting. Oh, we almost managed it. We got really close. It's a good thing I have 0 concern about looking like I do a perfect job doing this stuff. 3, 4. hand because that's what you do when you work with eggs. Right, Mama? So, obviously, if you want to use your stand mixer, that's a totally valid choice. I personally feel like that's unnecessary, so I'm not doing it. I probably should wash my hands again, but we're not doing it. So, just our regular old hand mixer. And it says here that we want to beat this until it's light, and that means that you want it to be kind of frothy. So don't underbeat this. Hopefully that's not too loud. It's fine, we're good. Have there been any questions yet? No? No questions? Now, light is kind of a difficult word. That's the word that they've used in the recipe. Now, it's unclear whether they mean beat this until the color gets light or until the texture is light. This is a pretty hard recipe to screw up, so just beat it for a while. It is getting lighter in color. We haven't added the sugar yet, so it's going to be not quite, it's not going to get to that place where it becomes like pale yellow, but you can see it's gotten a little frothy. To me, that's light, that's totally fine. Okay, so now we're going to sift in our dry ingredients. First thing I'm going to sift in is our sugar. So we have 2 cups of sugar. Nobody ever said these were low calorie. You can sift the sugar in. I don't always do that. It's kind of a pain in the butt. But here I am doing it anyway. I'm not usually somebody that follows recipes very well, as you've noticed from the other Facebook Lives I've done. Now sifting accomplishes 2 things, right? Sifting makes sure that you don't have any weird contaminants in your flour or your sugar or the other ingredients that you're adding to your batter. It also means that there's no lumps, which I talked about earlier, having lumpy flour. So, and we are going to put a little flour in this, but you're also going to beat it with the mixer. So I guess mainly you're making sure that there's no contaminants in your stuff, but if there's contaminants in your stuff, I guess you have a bigger problem. Okay, that's 2 cups of sugar. Now we're going to put in the flour, 4 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. Those make such a funny noise whenever you take them off. Yeah, Corey really enjoys that. Now, I love hearing when you guys tell me that you've made any of these recipes and like how well they've turned out. That makes me really happy. Lots of people have messaged me saying that they made the chicken and mustard sauce, and that makes me super happy. So if you make one of my recipes, tell me. I want to know. This is 1 tablespoon of baking powder, and that makes them kind of like lighter and fluffier. I don't think there's a lot of lemon bar recipes that use this in the filling, and I think it really makes a huge difference. And then we're going to put in half a teaspoon of salt. The other thing you got to remember when you're making sweet things is a little bit of salt makes a huge difference. It balances out the sweet flavor and almost sometimes makes things sweeter, which is kind of a cool thing. So I've got some of those. Okay. We're not in any hurry here because this has another 8 minutes to go and we're almost done. This is like the easiest recipe. but you are going to want to beat this for a while. It says mix well, but I highly recommend, if you've ever beaten eggs and sugar together, they'll go from like a really kind of like yellow color, like my apron, to like almost a pale yellow. Making sure that you do that and get to that stage makes a huge difference in the final product. You're also going to want to scrape down your sides so you don't have any extra stuff here. Something I've been looking forward to all week because I think it's been at least a year since I've made these, and they're really like kind of like one of those quintessential summer things. You can make them at other times of year, obviously, but I think they're just like the best summer treat. So we're both pretty excited about this. Corey doesn't really like citrus treats very much, but he really loves these because they're delicious.
It's like the summer shandy version of beer.
That's true. That's true.
It's the lemon version of desserts.
Okay, I think that's just about done. If you can see, like I said, it went from like maybe a little bit lighter than this apron, and now you can see it's kind of like a foamy pale yellow. That's what happens when you beat sugar and eggs together, and lemon juice, obviously. But in this case, you definitely want to have that kind of lighter foamy texture because it's going to make a huge difference in the final product that you bake. Like I said, it doesn't say that in the instructions. It's a very basic recipe. What I have is what you have. But I was actually thinking that I should probably try some of the other recipes in that book because I've only ever done the lemon bars. And there's like, I don't know, 200 pages of recipes and I've only done the one, and they must be pretty good. But in any case, I know we talked about doing a Harry Potter themed episode, and I know that a lot of people were interested in the butterbeer cupcakes, but they are very complicated. They have 3 steps: cupcake, filling, and frosting. And I've got to figure out how to do that in a reasonable Facebook Live format. So we're still working on that. But if you guys have any other requests, I am building a list. We're going to try to do this every week. Yes.
Question: have you ever tried to make them with lime instead of lemon?
Oh, these lemon bars? I have not personally, but I think they would be fantastic. You have to... it's really hard to say because lime is a different kind of citrus and a different flavor of citrus. So, I mean, and the key with these is you want the sugar to citrus combination to be perfect. I would actually probably put maybe another 1/4 cup of sugar in. To be perfectly honest, I'd keep it for 4 tablespoons lime juice, and then I'd put another 1/4 cup of sugar in, and you can adjust those. And if anyone makes them with lime juice, let me know, and I can make notes on the recipe on the website, because I think they would be delicious. Absolutely. How much time do we have left? 4 minutes. Any other questions? I actually think they'd be really good with orange too, but I would put less sugar in, like only 1.5 cups of sugar maybe, because orange is like a sweeter citrus flavor. I would also think they'd be really good if you like combined citrus juices. That would be really tasty. So if anyone wants to do that and do some like testing for me, let me know, because we are only 2 people in this house, and if I made like 3 pans of lemon bars, they would all be gone. And they are not, as I said before, a low-fat item. So we don't need that.
Be like a little Sprite or 7-Up lemon lime combo, right?
Oh yeah, it would. That'd be really good. Let's see, what else was I going to talk about? Oh, tomorrow I'm really excited. So we're doing the official cover reveal, blurb reveal, pre-order link for Hazardous Things and Extraordinary Things. So if you've missed that, the covers are in the group. They will be out in the live world tomorrow. The pre-order links are live. Hazardous Things comes out May 26th, and Extraordinary Things comes out June 29, or maybe the other way around. Anyway, stay tuned for tomorrow. Look at the post in my group because it says specifically. Those are books 3 and 4, the final 2 books of the Star Shadow series, and they should be read in order. So if you haven't read Terrible Things or Impossible Things yet, you really should read those. There may be a sale on them next week. Wait till then. They're also on KU, so that makes it also easy to check those out. But they really should be read in order. At the very least, you'll need to read Terrible Things because that kind of sets up the whole way the series develops. But you should also read Impossible Things because I base one of the characters on me. Let's see if anyone wants to guess which one it was. Or is anyone actually reading? If Angela's watching, she's going to guess correctly. Did anyone answer? No? No guesses? Okay, that was quick. I capitulate. It was Benji. Benji is based on me. I'm very ambitious. A lot of people didn't like that about him, but I love that about me, so yes. You love that about me too? Oh, that's so sweet, honey. You're such a nice, supportive husband. 2 minutes. God, has only been 2 minutes? It's like really hard. Yes. Move this. Pull something out. We're really not very good. Oh, do you want me to check it and see how it's doing? Okay. See, we're like learning how to mine here. We're not one of those couples that has like one of those wordless conversations. We are not that couple. We like actually will like talk you to death pretty much. Which is why it definitely needs another minute. Definitely why this is hard. You need to start, we need to get like a little whiteboard and like you need to like write notes on there and like hold it up. That's right. Well, that's the placemat, so that's not going to help. This is going to be the most boring episode ever because it's just going to be me and my husband talking to me. Let's see here. Any other exciting things? Oh, I wanted to talk a little bit about Extraordinary Things. I know that a lot of people are a little hesitant about it because Terrible Things was such a difficult book to write and also to read. Caleb and Leo's love story is a difficult one at best, but I knew as soon as I finished that book that I had more story to tell, and it's me. I'm a bleeding heart. I'm an eternal romantic, so you know that it's going to have a happily ever after at the end. The other thing that this book is giving me the opportunity to do, if you've read Terrible Things, you know that it's entirely in Leo's point of view. Extraordinary Things will be, hopefully, fingers crossed, if I can manage this, entirely from Caleb's point of view. So for all those people that have said, I want to know what Caleb's thinking, well, now you're going to know, because it's going to be like 50,000 words of what he's thinking. So I'm really excited about that. I'm probably going to be starting it this week. Super excited. Lots of surprises in that book. And you should definitely read it. Hey, look, there's the buzzer. What a miracle. I'm just going to get all situated here. Oh, that like slid funny. Okay, now it's going to look like it's not done baking because guess what? It's not done baking. It's still going to bake for another 25 minutes. So it's not going to look like it's finished. Now, if you let a little bit of time go by between when you finished whipping this and when this came out of the oven, definitely do a little like preemptive mix because it kind of, the sugar, it's hard for the sugar to completely dissolve and it will kind of like settle again. So you want to make sure when you pour it into the crust, it's nice and white. Handy. I happen to have a bowl that has a pouring thing. I didn't do that on purpose or anything. Now, one of the things that someone asked me once is like, oh, do you want to try to get the crust all the way up to the sides so that it's like kind of like a cheesecake, that the cheesecake filling doesn't go over the sides of the graham cracker crust? And I'm going to tell you no. First off, because I think that'll make the bottom of the crust too thin. And the second reason is because part of the delight of these lemon bars is the way that the lemon and the sugar and the filling caramelizes against the side of the pan. It's delicious. So you don't want to like lose that.
So you want all the edge pieces then?
If it's you and me, yes, we are going to be battling over the edge pieces. Because we both like edge pieces. We need like a third person in our family that doesn't like edge pieces. Except that wouldn't be Earl because he'd be afraid.
Well, they make those pans that have like look like a puzzle piece.
Yeah, there is. So we're going to put this back in the oven at 350 for 25 minutes. It may still be a tiny bit jiggly when you take it out. Let it cool for like 5 minutes, then cut it, and then let it cool almost, excuse me, I've had too much Diet Coke today. Let it cool almost completely, then take it out of the pan. Do not let it cool completely into the pan. Remember how I said there's enough butter in the crust that it isn't going to solidify and stick to the bottom of the pan? If you leave it in there until it's totally cool, it will probably stick to the pan, so don't do that. So let's put this back in. And as much as I love you guys, I'm not going to spend the next 25 minutes babbling at you incoherently or playing like mime with my husband. So unless there's any other questions, I'm going to let you go, and make sure you tune in next week. We've now moved to Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time because it's a little bit easier for us. We have a lot going on in the beginning of the week. So if you have any suggestions, please let me know. I'm going to take a picture of these when they're done and post them so you can see what they look like. And if you do make them, like I said, please let me know because it's so cool to hear that you guys are making the recipes. And I think that's it for the day. Thanks. See you next week.